My name is Max Brooks. You might know me from my other book, Zombie Survival Guide in World War Z, which was a movie with the same title. Not much else. But my new book is called The Harlem Hellfighters. I don't know if you've read it, if you know anything about it, but it is the true story of a unit of African American soldiers in World War I who were set up to fail by their own government. They were actively sabotaged. And they ended up coming home regardless as the greatest, most decorated unit in the entire US Army, despite all their own government did to make sure that they did not come home as heroes. That's exactly what happened. And they are one of America's best kept secrets. But more importantly, the reason I wanted to tell this story is because it is a story that is still being played out today. When I got up this morning and I turned on CNN, the first thing I saw was a press conference with Obama in the White House talking about, should we arm the rebels in Ukraine, and should we put boots on the ground to fight ISIS? And while the names and the places have changed, the question is still the same. The debate revolving around this issue is exactly the same debate that faced Woodrow Wilson 100 years ago. Why? Why would Americans go over there? Why would we suffer and sacrifice for other people? And Woodrow Wilson gave us an answer, or a justification, that politicians have used in every foreign war right up until this morning on CNN. And that justification is, we fight to make the world safe for democracy. And in that moment, Woodrow Wilson solidified an important tenet of the American consciousness, which is we are a nation built on ideals. And therefore, it is our moral obligation to go fight for those ideals overseas. But in doing so, Wilson exposed the hypocrisy that we have yet to live up to those ideals right here at home. When the Harlem Hellfighters came home, after being sabotaged, after being humiliated, after being given to the French, because US Army didn't want them, so they ended up fighting with the French, and came home after fighting in more combat than any other American unit, with the entire unit winning the Croix de Guerre. When they came home, they asked the question, why did I fight for the rights of people in France when I don't have those same rights here on the streets of New York City? And that's the exact question being asked today when veterans come home and say, why did I bleed and suffer for the people of Iraq and Afghanistan when I don't have the exact same rights on the streets of Ferguson, Missouri? The story of the Harlem Hellfighters is the story of us. It's the American story of trying to come to terms with these ideals and fight for those ideals both over there and over here. That's why I decided to do it. That's why it was so important to me. And that's why 2 weeks before the book came out, Will Smith grabbed up the movie rights. He knows. Sony Pictures knows. They know it's now, look, this is Hollywood here, so I'm not going to vouch for the movie. I'll be happy if they're black. But they understand that this is not just a timely story, it's a timeless story. And the reason that I wrote this book in graphic novel format is exactly for that reason. I've had a really good 12 years with my zombie books. And one of the best parts about them is I've been allowed to go around the country and connect with young people, and not just Comic-Cons. I've lectured at something like maybe 100 universities all over the country. And you could not be any more diverse than all the places I've gone to. But they all had one thing in common. They all read graphic novels. And that's because the graphic novel is the one print format that's still able to compete with digital distraction. Remember when we were kids and our teachers were like, you gotta turn off the TV and read the books. All they had to deal with was television. Well, now television, as we all know, is just one dragon head in the hydra of electronic platforms that are constantly giving our young people ADD. The distraction level, the attention level is so intense that if young people, even in college, if they're not natural readers, It's a struggle to get them to just develop the discipline, and we all know reading is a discipline. So I wanted to do a graphic novel because I knew that that was the best way to grab the attention and to educate. And speaking as someone who struggled with dyslexia my whole life, I can tell you that if it wasn't for comic books, I probably wouldn't have learned to read. But more than learning to read, I was educated. I was educated by Art Spiegelman's Mouse and Persepolis and the works of Joe Sacco. And I think it's an incredibly underrated and underappreciated means of educating young people, of grabbing their attention. That's why I did this as a graphic novel, and that's why I think it is one of the most important stories to be told right now. Because it is the story of us. It's the story of this weird artificial construct called the United States, these people coming together, but bound together by nothing but ideals. And yet, we have yet to live up to them. And the struggles that are being faced right now are the exact struggles that were faced in 1917. That's why I wrote the Harlem Hellfighters. That's why I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much.